Welcome to today's Explainer. Man, I am absolutely thrilled to get into this one. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating case study that basically reads like a modern-day detective thriller, but it actually comes to us from way back in history. We're looking at one of the earliest recorded examples of a psychological lie detector test. And no, we're not talking about polygraph machines or high-tech heart rate monitors here. This is all about the raw, unfiltered human mind. We're going to use this incredible ancient story to explore the psychology of guilt, how our brains completely betray us when we've done something wrong, and how one seriously brilliant observer used that exact human weakness to solve a major royal crisis.
So let's kick things off with a question. Can your own fear actually get you caught? I mean, really think about that for a second. When you try to hide a mistake, does your human psychology, your own internal guilt, make it practically impossible to keep it completely hidden? We so often think that if we just, cover our physical tracks, we're totally safe. But the mind has this funny way of manifesting its anxiety into the physical world. As we're going to see in the source material today, sometimes the hardest thing to conceal isn't the physical evidence of a crime at all. It's the sheer panic going on inside the criminal's head. All right, Section 1, The King's Lost Ring. Our story kicks off in the grand palace of King Krishnadevaraya, where a nice, leisurely stroll turned into a total royal disaster. See, the king had managed to lose his absolute favorite, completely priceless diamond ring somewhere out in the vast palace gardens. And just to give you an idea of the extremely high stakes of this mystery, he announced a massive reward for anyone who could bring it back: 100 gold coins. Now, back in those days, 100 gold coins was a literal, life-changing fortune. It was more than enough money to make every single servant, guard, and soldier in the entire palace drop exactly what they were doing and join the search party. The motivation to find this ring was absolutely sky-high. But well, here is where the usual traditional methods just totally hit a brick wall. Despite this massive reward and a literal army of people combing through the gardens, hours passed with absolutely no success. They searched every bush, they moved every rock, they swept every single pathway. And nothing. The physical search was a total failure. The ring had seemingly just vanished into thin air. So it became pretty clear that just looking for the physical object itself wasn't working anymore. They needed a completely different approach to the whole problem. Which brings us to Section 2, Tenali Rama's plan. Enter the legendary master detective himself, Tenali Rama, ready to completely shift the paradigm. While everybody else was busy looking down at the dirt, Tenali was looking up at the people. He observed carefully, and his sharp eyes caught a massive clue. He noticed one particular servant standing just a little bit apart from the rest of the group. This guy was visibly terrified and showing a classic nervous tic. He kept repeatedly touching the cloth tied around his waist. Just over and over again. He appeared incredibly anxious. So Tenali knew right then and there that this man was hiding the ring in his waistcloth. But here's the catch. How do you actually prove it without causing a massive scene or making a false accusation? Well, Tenali doesn't just confront the guy. Instead, he sets up this wildly brilliant psychological trap. He gives the servants these very specific, super suspenseful instructions. He sets up a tent with a dark curtain in the courtyard and places a really large bell right inside. Then, he tells the gathered servants that they need to follow 3 simple steps. Step 1, go behind the curtain one by one. Step 2, touch the holy bell resting inside. And step 3, come back outside. And here is the absolute kicker. He announces to the whole crowd, the bell will ring on its own for the innocent. Seriously, he framed this bell as some sort of mystical, divine judge. He made all the servants believe that this object possessed literal magical properties and would sound the alarm if the guilty person even dared to touch it. It's genius, really. He was completely weaponizing their own superstitions and beliefs against them, creating this immense, crushing cognitive load for the real thief. Moving on to Section 3, The Secret of the Magic Bell. Because let's be real, magical mind-reading bells do not actually exist. The secret? Black soot. Before anyone even went into that tent, Tenali Rama had secretly coated the entire outer surface of the bell with a really thick layer of this black powder. And because the bell was hidden away behind a dark curtain inside a dimly lit tent, anyone who went in and touched it wouldn't immediately realize what was on their hands. They would just go in, follow the instructions to touch the metal, and walk right back out. So let's get into the climax in Section 4. Fear revealed the secret. The intense pressure of the trap was completely set. After all the servants went through the tent one by one, Tenali Rama asked them all to hold out their hands. Now, the innocent servants, they knew they hadn't done anything wrong, so they marched into that tent without a second thought and firmly placed their hands right on the bell, exactly as they were told. As a result, they all came out with black soot completely smeared across their palms. But the guilty servant, his hands were totally 100% clean. Tenali Rama just smiles, presents this brilliant deduction to the king, and points right at the man with the clean hands. He says, "He who didn't touch the bell has clean hands." It's amazing. The thief's own guilt and paranoia made him way too terrified to actually touch the bell. He genuinely thought he was outsmarting this magic test by just standing silently in the dark tent and pretending he touched it. What he totally failed to realize was that the absence of the mark was the real evidence of his guilt. His fear of getting caught is exactly what caught him. The second this trap was explained, the psychological weight just became way too much for the servant. Realizing how completely and utterly he'd been outsmarted, the overwhelming fear caused him to basically break down right then and there. Right on the spot, he reached into his waistcloth, yep, the exact same place Tenali noticed him nervously touching earlier, took out the diamond ring, handed it directly back to the king, and tearfully admitted his mistake. The entire interrogation was totally passive yet incredibly effective. The king was absolutely floored. He praised Tenali Rama, just totally amazed at how he managed to catch a criminal using literally nothing but the man's own nervousness. And Tenali replies with this absolute mic drop moment. He says, "Theft can be hidden, but not fear." Wow. That is a profound psychological insight that absolutely still holds true centuries later. You can bury the stolen goods, you can scrub away all the physical evidence, but the physiological response to guilt, the rapid heartbeat, the nervous tics, the avoidance behaviors, those are incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to mask. Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. When you make a mistake, how hard is it to hide your own nervousness? Think about a time you tried to cover up just a tiny little error at work, or maybe a mistake at home. Didn't your mind just race? Didn't you completely overthink your actions, exactly like the servant who refused to touch the bell? Tenali Rama's strategy reminds us of a really universal human truth. Our bodies and our minds are deeply, deeply connected. So the next time you're observing a high-pressure situation, don't just look for the obvious facts. Look for the fear. The absence of soot might just tell you absolutely everything you need to know. Thank you, Bryce, so much for exploring this awesome piece of historical psychology with me today. Keep observing, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.